April wrap up, let's go. So the first thing I noticed going back is that I goofed. Technically I actually finished this at the beginning of April, but I put it in my March one. And there's something I actually did finish in March that I didn't put in there, and I put this one instead because I swapped them because I don't know why. I'm going to start with The Vow So Bold and Deadly. I actually finished this in March. This is what I swapped with Chain of Iron. I don't know why. And overall, I am very disappointed in this being the finale for the A Curse So Dark and Lonely series. I gave this book a 2 stars. There just wasn't a lot of action in this, and there was kind of like, oh, there might be a war, and not really a lot happening in the build up to that, and then the war didn't end up happening, and it was just kind of wrapped up too quickly in a way that wasn't satisfying at all. Also, who ends up with the crown is a bit questionable, and I'm not here for it. That being said, like, this was still quite quick and easy to read, so like that was good. And there was a bit of characters, kind of like a bit of angst and like questioning other people's motives, but then they just kind of forgave them. I don't know, it wasn't, I'm frustrated. So I still really like the first 2 books in the series, but this was a bit of a letdown. I read Six of Crows, finally, I don't have it. I've lent it out to a friend because it's our book club book for this month, which is kind of meant to be for April, but now it's going into May because I read faster than other people. But look, we're all busy, so it's fine. So I gave Six of Crows a 4 stars. I did enjoy it, but I feel like the hype was just so much that it was very difficult for it to blow my brain. There was still a lot of like emotional moments. I do think this is more of like a character-driven story, which usually I like a bit more plot. But I was quite happy learning about these characters, and now reading Crooked Kingdom, I am like very invested, and I like it, and I get it. I do think Crooked Kingdom is the stronger out of the 2 so far. I'm about halfway through Crooked Kingdom. Oh my god, I cannot say those words today. But like, maybe like, and yeah. I'm really enjoying this. This one has less plot, but I enjoy it more. Sometimes in books, I find it hard to visualize when a lot of action is happening if they kind of just skip over steps where it's like, oh, we're here now. And I'm like, wait, what? So I just have to like backtrack. Like, I kind of found it hard to visualize the ice courts in lots of detail. Like, I know we had the map, but I just was a bit like, oh, okay. Yeah, but overall, I really liked it. Learning about Kaz's background, I was like, oh shit. I don't even know how Lee Bardugo thought of that. It's very disturbing, very tragic. And I really hope that in Crooked Kingdom he opens up about his past and starts to heal, because this boy worries me. There was so much pining in this, so there isn't any like fully formed romances, but there's lots of like, oh, I hold a candle for you, but it's a bad idea. So I actually kind of like that, because it does kind of differentiate itself from other YA stories where it is just insta-love, the romance, that's it. The romance has to take a backseat to survival and there's other stuff they're doing. It looks like we might get to see a bit more romance in Crooked Kingdom. There already has been a bit more fruition. Also, Yerda Parem sounds absolutely terrifying. And I have not watched the Shadow and Bone Netflix show yet because I really want to finish at least Crooked Kingdom. I might try and read King of Scars and Rule of Wolves as well, but like, that's too many books to wait. But I hope, if not in season 1, in season 2, if we can get into Yerda Parem, because cinematic. Especially even just the first chapter of Six of Crows, I was like, oh, that was badass, and that would be so good on film. Alright, next I read Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. And I read this on my e-reader. I gave this 3 stars. This is like a psychological thriller where this woman, I can't remember her name because I've already moved on to like other books, She is getting paid to house sit in this very old, prestigious, fancy building in New York, and she's getting paid like $3,000 a month, and she's broke, and she doesn't really have family, and she has like one friend. And so she stays there, someone goes missing, there's lots of mystery, and I enjoyed it, but I don't think this genre is necessarily like my favorite genre. So I think it was good for what it was, but I wasn't like, whoa, but I still enjoyed reading it. That being said as well, I wasn't reading it with lots of momentum because I read multiple books at a time because that's just who I am as a person. And I liked that the resolution was plausible, like this is something that could happen in real life. I'm not a fan of when thrillers go to a supernatural place because it just feels a bit shoehorned in if there's like, oh, there's magic that hasn't been fully explained. But yeah, it started off quite slow, but then it picked up towards the middle to the end. There was some good twists in here that I was like, yes. There was a bit of Pretty Little Liars going on with just jumping to conclusions without enough evidence, which was a bit annoying, but also some of that was proven wrong, so that was alright with me. Because that is a pet peeve of mine when like characters just go, ah, it must be this, without any proof. They're like, ah, it must be that because plot convenience, and they're right every time. I'm like, no. Mine are like B-plot that was just kind of like in the character's past, and I was kind of hoping that was gonna come back into play and get resolved. But I guess like that's just part of the tragedy of the story, that's not. I wasn't super invested in any of the characters. I'd definitely say this is a bit more plot driven. But just as like a quick thriller to read, it did its job. I finished reading Aurora Burning by Jack Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. I gave this book 3 stars. Like, it could have been a 4, but 3. So, yeah, this is just following on from Aurora Rising, where we're following our team, and they're on the run, and space. Yeah. I do feel like this built on the first book a lot more. I had more fun reading this one. It's still, like, it did kind of get a bit more deeper and mature in its themes, but still just, I don't know, I'm like, just feels a bit lacking, but maybe like it's typical of YA, but I kind of just wanted more out of it. And there were things introduced that I was like, oh, okay, that'll be interesting for the next book. I'm not keen that the next book is the last one, just because I feel like some of the things that they've started to explore could really benefit from being expanded upon through multiple books. So that being said, I think I'll still read the last book in this series. I don't see this being a series that I would revisit. Like, it is just a fun romp kind of read and this one kind of does get a bit more emotional. But yeah, I can see myself unhauling these after I read them. We expand on Zyla's character exponentially, which I really enjoyed. So we get some more backstory from characters in this one, and action as always, and a bit more development with like the character relationships within our team. The last thing I read in April was Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. This is a bind-up that has Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. I just read Alice in Wonderland, and unfortunately I didn't love this as much as I thought I was going to. I gave it a 2 stars. And that's just because, like, I appreciate this is the source material, but I feel like adaptations of this have mined more out of it. So I don't know if that's just that I didn't analyze this enough, but there were definitely parts of this story that have been cut out of other adaptations that I'm like, I see why that was cut out. Why is it there? But it is like the nonsense thing, and like not everything has to have a reason, or the reason is that it doesn't have a reason, and that life can be like that. I just feel like I've gotten more out of the movies, and in particular The Trials of Alice in Wonderland, which was a kids musical I started working on last year that didn't happen due to COVID, but it really kind of lent into those nuggets of wisdom that are in the story and kind of really drew that out. I feel like it kind of just left in the dark. It's a bit, I just wish there was a bit more direction about what the moral of the story was. And the actual ending of it, I was not vibing with it that we're suddenly seeing from Alice's sister perspective, which we haven't really seen her interact with her the whole story, and that she gets to wrap up the story. Like, it's kind of nice having this bittersweet, like, yes, I'll always remember, like, my childhood, like, naivete, dreaming fantasy. But I feel like that should have come from Alice, not from the sister. So I do eventually plan to read through Looking Glass. I'm just not, like, revving to do that, like, right now. So we shall see. I do see myself trying to reread this again just because I'm like, I think I'm being a bit harsh. But I just feel like I thought would be more. Oh, and just popping in, I totally forgot to do my stats. So I'm going to put up the infographic here. So I read a total of 33 hours and 19 minutes over the month. I read 1,760 pages and my fastest reading pace was 52 pages an hour. The most pages I read in a day was 74. The most minutes read in a day was 74 as well. Fastest paced book was Alice in Wonderland, which was 67 pages an hour. And slowest was Different Every Night, which is 28 pages an hour. Because it's non-fiction and it's so dense. Average number of pages a day was 58. Total books finished was 4. Quotes added 155. I don't even remember adding that many. Hot damn. I added 6 thoughts and 5 words to my dictionary that I did not know. As for what I'm reading now, as mentioned before, I'm reading Crooked Kingdom. I'm really enjoying this. Hope to finish this like in the next week or so. I'm also reading The King of Atolia by Megan Whalen Turner. This is borrowed from my friend Rachel. What up? And this is the 3rd book in the series. And I'm not 100% loving it, but I am interested enough to see where the series goes because Rachel just speaks of it so highly. But this book especially is from a perspective of a brand new character, and I'm a bit like, okay, we're waffling, where are we going? This is very politics heavy, so this is the kind of book where I feel like I should be taking notes because there are a lot of like names of people and places that can get mixed up very easily. That being said, like, it's pretty easy to read. Like, the formatting is like quite open spread. The chapters in this book are ridiculously long and I hate it. Like, there are page breaks, which helps a bit, but I'm like, if I just want to read a chapter, some chapters are like 60 pages long. Excuse me, like, why? Chapter 5, I'm on chapter 6 now, was from page 73 to 133. That's a whole chapter. Damn it. So I'm struggling with the pacing a bit, but all in all, like, none of the books are super long. I'm just like, there's lots of other books I'm more excited about that it's hard to prioritize. And on my e-reader at the moment, I'm reading, oh, there's so much glare, From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout, which I've heard so many good things about. And yeah, this is already getting quite adult, and actually in like the first few chapters where I'm like, slow down, where can we go from here? But I am intrigued. I don't know how I feel about there being vampires involved, but like, it could work. I'm not mad at it. I loved Twilight in the Day and Vampire Academy, which I still love. I don't really have a formal TBR for May, but I do think I want to join in on the Do the Thing-a-thon, which is the last week of May, just to try and read some more of the books of my top 20 I wanted to read in 2021, because I've read like 2 of those. That's what I've been reading. Bye-bye. Cheers.